Before we begin, just a quick thing. I've got a website where I do reviews, I've got a gaming channel, and I'm also an author. My book's on Amazon, links in the description. Thanks a lot, let's begin.
Technology is changing our world.
My name is John, and this is my world.
Making what was once impossible
My name is Anna, and this is my world.
possible.
My name is Yumiko, and this is my world.
With technology advancing so rapidly today,
My name is Fang, and this is my world.
imagine what our world will look like tomorrow.
My name is Alice, and this is my world.
By now I should explain how movie franchises work. The first film is typically low budget but with an interesting concept with a lot of longevity, and if it's successful enough then it will also typically spawn a sequel. The second film gets more money and its release is populated by the fans of the original and makes even more money. If a third film gets made, this is when the problems set in because the makers get a bit cocky and start ruining everything. The fourth film, if it's not a remake, will attempt to win back the lost audience, and if it's successful then any remaining films will be there to make money. Any films beyond the fourth installment will not necessarily try to move the series forward because that would mean that the story is nearing a close and therefore an end to the steady stream of money that can fund other riskier projects. Why do you think the Marvel Cinematic Universe exists? Because they're good stories? No, because they make shitloads of cash. What I'm trying to say is that Resident Evil Retribution is a money spinner. You could literally not watch this film and miss nothing. Everything that happens in this film is either totally inconsequential or completely retconned in the next film. Picking up straight after the ending of Afterlife, where the Umbrella planes ambush the Arcadia, Alice is captured whilst it looks like a lot of, if not all of the survivors are killed. Whilst being held in an Umbrella facility, Alice is tortured for an undisclosed amount of time by Jill Valentine, who is under Umbrella's control. However, someone cuts the power, gives Alice some appropriate clothing, and unlocks the doors so she can escape. She finds herself in an underwater testing facility that Umbrella used to showcase the T-Virus's effects and sell it to different nations. Whilst Alice was captured, Wesker appears to have gone rogue from Umbrella, which is now under the control of the Red Queen, the evil computer that was rebooted after the events of the first movie. To help Alice escape the facility and its many chambers, Wesker has sent a crack team of experienced fighters, including a familiar face in Luther West and some other familiar faces from the games: Ada Wong, Barry Burton, and Leon S. Kennedy. Retribution contains the most characters from the video game when it comes to new and pre-existing characters. Jill Valentine returns after a mid-credits appearance in Afterlife, and she's shown to be controlled by Umbrella a la Jill Valentine from Resident Evil 5, complete with matching outfit, hair and guns. Sienna Guillory is practically unrecognisable from her appearance in Apocalypse, but once I heard that really funny accent, I knew it was her.
Scramble all security teams and sweep the corridor with the laser grid.
Oded Fair is back as Carlos, but it's complicated since the series is still fucking around with clones. The first time we see Oded Fair, he's not Carlos but Todd, and he's living an idyllic suburban life with an Alice clone and their daughter Becky, who suffers from a hearing disability. Their house is attacked by zombies and Todd is infected whilst Alice and Becky escape. They're picked up by Rain as Michelle Rodriguez returns, but their car crashes and Alice and Becky return to their house. Alice manages to hide Becky before she's killed by a zombified Todd. Carlos is in the film, but he's evil. Like I said, it's complicated, but there's not much more to say about him. There's no character progression or even likability about him. Real Carlos is still dead. Then there's Barry Burton. Barry first appeared in the original Resident Evil game. His character was blackmailed by Wesker, who was holding his family hostage, into removing any evidence of Umbrella's involvement in the Spencer Mansion incident and luring Jill into traps with monsters. He eventually revolted against Wesker and left with Jill, Chris and Rebecca when they escaped the mansion before its destruction. Barry returned briefly in Resident Evil Nemesis to rescue Carlos and Jill before Raccoon City's destruction. His next playable feature would be in Resident Evil Revelations 2, which I've started but haven't finished. In the film, Barry assists Leon, Luther and another guy in breaching the underground facility to reach and rescue Alice and Ada. Speaking of, the two final characters are Ada Wong and Leon S. Kennedy. The pair have a long and frustrating relationship which I would describe as a long and insufferable game of hard to get. It's obvious that they both want to shag each other senseless, but they never actually get down to it, apart from this one line in Resident Evil Damnation.
By the way, when are we going to, carry on from where we left off that night?
Anytime but now.
That's all the payoff. Ada started out as an operative for an unknown agency sent into a zombie-filled Raccoon City to retrieve the G-Virus. After Raccoon City's destruction, Ada started working for Wesker and was sent to Europe to retrieve the Las Plagas sample, which ended up being successful. Her part in Resident Evil 6 was so complicated that I can't remember, but even that started fucking about with clones. And then there's Leon. Leon is definitely my favourite character, and that's not just because he's the hunkiest. We see an arc with Leon. With Resident Evil 2, Leon was a rookie police officer embroiled in the nightmare on his first day at the Raccoon City Police Department, and by Resident Evil 4, he's a secret agent under employment by the government, and he's grown to be more serious about his work now that he knows what's out there. Post Resident Evil 6, Leon's older and contemplating how long he'll be fighting Umbrella, since every time he slaps them down, they come back stronger. Even though he's part of a ridiculous franchise, I like what they did with his character. In Resident Evil 2, Leon was voiced by Paul Haddad, who very sadly passed away in April 2020 at the age of 56. It was a shock for the Resident Evil community, who expressed their grief and memories of Mr. Haddad's portrayal of Leon Kennedy in what many see as their favourite instalment of the franchise. I've played through Resident Evil 2 and I consider it to be a vast improvement over the original, and I'll also take it over Nemesis. Even though Paul Haddad only appeared in Resident Evil 2, he will forever be fondly remembered by the fans and myself as the original Leon Kennedy. Leon would next appear canonically in Resident Evil 4, where he's sent to Europe to rescue the President's daughter from an evil cult who plan on world domination using a mind-controlling parasite. Yep, that's the plot. I've got a video on this coming out in the future on this game, but this iteration of Leon is how we see him in Retribution. Once again, this film is very pretty, what with it being the second of the franchise to be filmed in 3D, and also this installment is one of the rare instances where I'm not upset about the performances when it comes to the introduction of video game characters. Li Bingbing definitely captured an essence of Ada and actually made her more likeable than her video game counterparts. Definitely less smug.
Yes, but nobody remembered to roll out my red carpet.
I've got a lot of time for Kevin Durand. I thought he was brilliant in The Strain, and although he doesn't get a chance to really flex his acting muscles with Barry Burton, he certainly brought the recognisable gruff demeanour to the character. The role of Leon went to Estonian actor Johan Erb. This guy looks like he showed up to Comic-Con dressed in Leon cosplay, which is fine and on brand for the films, but my main contention is that Leon was arguably one of the most popular characters, and also, once again, he's given nothing to do. There's a bit of an implied romance between himself and Ada, but it's only there because their relationship was like that in the games and not explored any further. Colin Salmon also returns as One, and although his part is minimal, even a splash of Colin Salmon makes all the difference. Just the same as Afterlife, Retribution is suffering from a serious case of filler content, with the only plot development happening at the end. Now that I think about it, the whole film is paced more like a Resident Evil game than one of the films. The beginning sets up Alice's motivations and establishes an enemy, then Alice is set free and there's the fight in Tokyo. Seriously, that sequence in the hallway plays out like one of those predetermined action sequences that the games began to adopt. All it's missing is QuickTime events. Then the battle in New York and the suburbs, then in Russia with the whole car chase with the liquor, and then the fight with the liquor, then the final boss fight with Jill and Bad Rain, and then a totally unclimactic ending in Washington. Where the fuck are Claire, Chris and Kmart? Retribution brings the return of the defenseless innocents in Becky, and whilst I do not think that Ariana Engineer did a bad job at all, I just question the relevance of her character. She's obviously there for Alice because no one is an individual in these films. They all revolve around Alice because her only purpose, as far as I can see, is to have someone for Alice to protect. Once the fight with Jill and Bad Rain is done, in which Luther is the only fatality, Alice, Becky, Jill, Leon and Ada are taken to Washington DC, where Wesker has taken over the White House with the remainder of the Umbrella Corps. Once they meet again, Wesker re-injects Alice with the T-virus, restoring her abilities. His reasoning for doing this is that the Red Queen is trying to wipe out humanity, and all the remaining uninfected humans are located at the White House. When Alice has her powers, she's unstoppable. The film ends with our heroes and Wesker standing on the roof of the White House as the Umbrella Corps fight the encircling infected. With a budget of $65 million, Retribution took in $240.2 million, which is less than Afterlife, but it wasn't a failure in terms of box office. In reading the reviews, it feels like critics weren't displeased because by this point, the films had their own standard and Retribution met that standard. As long as it looked cool and wasn't boring, then it's fine, and Retribution isn't boring. The trademark cool action sequences are there, but it doesn't make any sense. What was the point of holding Alice in a testing facility? Why did Ada go in on her own when a team was following her in anyway? Why can Alice still do extraordinary things despite no longer having her abilities? There is still one massive question hanging over this series from day one. Who is Alice? Where did she come from? What are her origins?
But really quick, can you tell me, there's a line at the end of the movie where someone says, this is the beginning of the end. Where do you want to see, how would you like to see Alice's story end? Sorry. Oh.
No, it's okay. I'll take some time off lunch. It's funny because Paul did, every film we do one at a time. We don't think about the next film. We take this story and make the best thing we can because you don't want to jinx yourself going, oh, the next 2 films. But I have to say, he does have an idea for the closure, and if we did get a chance to make number 6, that would be the end of this iteration of Resident Evil, like with Alice and my character and stuff. I mean, Resident Evil will go on, but this story, this universe, potentially, if we did a next one, would be the end.